Welcome to the Upland Nation podcast. I'm Scott Linden, your host. Guide to the Uplands, public ground this week. And our industry insider this week is Tim Frampton. Tim runs the shotgun division for Browning Firearms, so we'll get some insights from him. Historic, what's new in the industry and the company, some of those new models you might be wondering about. We'll also get some hunting and shooting tips from a guy who knows his stuff. Our road trip this week goes, well, just about everywhere. We're going to talk about some agencies that we might not have considered as frequently for public access. And then you're going to tell me about some of the interesting things you found up there, out there, in there, down there. It's all coming up right here on the Upland Nation podcast. Made possible by Sage and Breaker Gun Care Products, Pointer Shotguns, Mid-Valley Clays and Shooting School, TrulockChokes Tubes, MidwayUSA.com, Joy Dog Food, and FindBirdHuntingSpots.com. Yeah, spring cleaning, finally got the memo on that and started doing some of it. You know, I've got a long list, maybe you do too, of things to do when the weather goes sideways and you can't do anything outdoors. I mean, really bad. We've had a couple blizzards in the last week or two that have, well, just kind of destroyed my faith in Mother Nature. I probably should be careful about that, shouldn't I? Anyway, so I did some indoor work, which I've been trying to do for literally years. You can imagine I get a lot of ammunition sent to me, given to me, buy some when I need it. I had 20 linear feet of ammo on my workbench in boxes and cases and bags and bowls and, oh, well, you name it. Finally got it organized. The upshot of it is I've got a lifetime supply and then some. So when the apocalypse takes place, you know where to go for ammo. Come on down. Except for 20-gauge target ammo. I'll be working on that in a minute or two with Midway USA. But in the meanwhile, I did learn a lesson. I started trying to get really organized and put all of those loose shells back in boxes. 20, the kind you buy them in, 25-round boxes. And the quick and dirty lesson I learned was you don't have to do that alternating base thing, one way, one the other way. If you are artful about it and are willing to cram them in a little bit, they'll all go in no matter what direction their base is facing. Oh, my. You, on the other hand, have been working on something else entirely. Yeah, a few years back, I was running Flick up on a high spot, quite close, but not really close to us. Came upon a little memorial. Yeah, really, in the middle of nowhere, really. A couple rocks and a couple plastic flowers, and one of the rocks had a flat face, and it was inscribed with the name of a person. And I took a picture of it just because I found it so, I guess, touching, interesting, maybe slightly eerie. So I put that picture up on Facebook and asked if you'd ever found anything like that, a memorial, a stone or something. I remember another one up in the Pine Forest Range of Nevada with a big cross with the dog's name on it. That was touching as well. Fred Slyfield said he finds a lot of those kind of things in elk camps. One spot in the Wenatchee Mountains has a family site with 14 family members' ashes up there. Ashes also from Greg Shea. Their father's ashes in his favorite quail hunting spot. And they hang a small ornament there every year when they visit for a hunt. Rick Horn, like many of us, wants to bury our dogs in certain places where they were most happy. Sometimes that can work, sometimes it can't. I understand. This is actually a very sad question. I'm kind of sorry I asked it. But Kyle Broadfoot found a memorial to a little girl, Tilly, who got lost and died in the sandhills of Nebraska in the 1800s. Stumbled upon that while grouse hunting in the middle of nowhere. Lots of crosses, amazing tributes, Betty Blackman says, to people and dogs. Yeah, all sorts of interesting stuff. Peter Wax found a giant boulder with some inscriptions on it. There is stuff out there of all sorts, whether it's golden eagle nests, memorials to a lost dog or a person. They're all cool. They're all touching. Thanks for sharing all of that with me, everybody. And, yeah, keep the pictures coming. Fascinating stuff out there. We're brought to you in part by pointershotguns.com. That's where you'll take a look at their new case-colored guns. Well, the receivers. The whole gun can also come in a color. You know, they've got the Cerakoting available in various shades, as well as the traditional colors. Pointershotguns.com has the full array with all the colors, all the models, including that new side-by-side. So take a look at pointershotguns.com. And if you didn't catch it the first time around, the range bag from sageandbreaker.com is coming back. They're making more right now. Did you learn your lesson? Sign up for the mailing list, and you won't miss out on future sales and all those new product announcements. Do that at sageandbreaker.com. And now for the good stuff. The product manager for shotguns at Browning Firearms joins us right now from, are you in Morgan, Utah right now, Tim Frampton?
Yes, I am.
Yeah.
Yep.
Lovely place. I've always meant to stop and fish. What's the stream right up there that I always drive past?
Oh, that's the Weber River.
There it is. Yeah, yeah. Beautiful stretches in there. And someday I'll be there at the right time of year for that. But usually I'm frantically trying to get to Montana or something.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Wonderful place. A lot of history for Browning in Utah. Many years ago, shot a pilot for a show for the Shooting Sports Foundation and spent a morning in the museum down there. But you're not quite there. Tell me a little bit about, give us a sense of place for you right now, Tim.
Sure. So I'm in Morgan, Utah, which is just on the other side of the Wasatch Mountains from the urban sprawl of Ogden and the Salt Lake metropolitan area. So it's kind of a cool little place nestled in the mountains, but pretty close to town. We here at Browning have a pretty big chunk of land. When the Browning family moved the company from downtown Ogden, they bought I think it's about a full section. I think 640 acres or whatever it is out here.
Yeah.
And gives us a lot of room to test new products. We have a 300-yard outdoor rifle range, trap and skeet field. It's a beautiful setting. Right now everything's covered in snow. We just had. I mean, honestly,
I'm laughing with you, not at you.
Yeah. Probably had about 10 inches of snow last night and on through this morning. So it was made for a little bit of a hairy drive, but not something you really expect to have this late in the spring. But it's been an odd winter, I got to say. But normally when things are starting to green out, you have these nice snow-capped mountains out the office window and, wildlife, turkeys, huns, plenty of mule deer roaming around. So it's a pretty cool spot, really scenic.
Oh, I love it. And it is beautiful out there. And like I said, I regret having to blow through there at, well, exceeding the speed limit most times. But I can see a lot of the buildings down there, and I can see downtown, and it's always tempting to pull over and take a look. So someday, watch out. I'll give you plenty of warning.
Yeah, no, please do.
How about yourself? Let's get a little backstory from you. What do you do there, and then where are you from?
Sure. So I am the product manager for the shotgun lines at Browning. So what that means essentially is that I'm a product marketer for shotgun-specific product, and I don't mean accessories, but the guns themselves. So the accessories is handled by someone else. So if you were to buy Browning choke tubes or choke wrenches, shooting vests, that kind of stuff, that's handled by someone else. But essentially, my job day to day is, I mean, it sounds fun, and it is, but a lot of video calls with our factories and typing emails back and forth. So it's it's definitely a desk job. I don't get a lot of time out in the field or anything like that. I do make time for that, but it's not my day to day by any means.
Well, what do you do when you do have free time?
So when I do have free time, I have 3 small children, so I don't have a whole lot of that. But when I do manage to get some free time, I like to shoot sporting clays, shoot a bit of trap, not a whole lot, and I guess my other real hobby is just shooting and hunting. So I mean, I shoot rifles a bit, not competitively necessarily, but always has been a passion of mine. Waterfowl hunt a little bit, upland hunt, and then try to get some big game hunting in, a couple decent big game hunts every year.
Well, you're a busy guy, and you're talking to folks all over the world. Give us a sense of the Browning company these days. I mean, your tentacles are everywhere, and a lot of us know some of that, but not all of that.
Sure. So Browning's. Let's see. Browning North America is headquartered here in Morgan, Utah, but we have other facilities around the world, because we're actually owned by FN Herstal in Belgium. So we work pretty closely with them. There's also all of our warehousing, gunsmithing, our service and warranty department, all that's handled in Arnold, Missouri, which is a suburb of St. Louis. So about the company in the United States is split about half and half. We've got half the company here in Utah, and then half in Arnold, Missouri, and then we have an office up in Canada also that handles all of our Canadian sales. And then overseas we have what we call Browning International, and they essentially handle the rest of the world. So we handle North America, and they sell firearms to everywhere else, Europe, South America, the South Pacific, all kinds of different places. So that's out of Liège, Belgium, not too far from the FN Herstal plant. And then we have a factory in Portugal. It's a Browning facility. All those guys over there are my coworkers. I work with them regularly. Yeah. Go and visit them at least once a year. But they make a good portion of our firearms. And then another factory that we work with very closely that makes all of our handguns is actually in Salt Lake City. They're not owned by us, but they're a very close supplier. We'd kind of consider them to be almost like a captured manufacturer. They only make handguns for us. And the same is true of the Miroku facility in Kochi, Japan. They're more or less a captured manufacturer. They make Miroku product for the domestic market in Japan, and they also sell to Australia. And then in Europe, where the Miroku brand is still pretty strong, Browning handles all the sales and distribution and marketing for Miroku product. If you were to go to, say, the UK and shoot sporting clays, and you saw somebody shooting a Miroku branded firearm, that's handled by us. We distribute that. So they've been a long time partner since right about 1970 or so. They've been working with us, and just got back from there 2 weeks ago. So try to make it out and visit them twice a year typically. But now that all the COVID restrictions are up. I actually happened to get to Japan the day that they lifted their mask mandate, so that was nice. I didn't have to wear a mask while I was over there.
You could breathe free for a change.
Oh, it was nice. Yeah.
And that's a political statement, by the way, everybody. So I'm just curious. You go to Japan. You're making shotguns over there. What do you go over to do when you're doing that?
So typically what I do is I meet with the team that makes the guns, both their project managers and the folks that are actually in charge of the manufacturing, and we just discuss different projects that we're working on. The big thing really is we're trying to come up with new product or come up with ways to improve current product. Mm-hmm. So we essentially just make a list of all the stuff that we intend to work on over the course of a week and hammer out all the fine details while we're there.
Let's talk about that and the other things that are new in the Browning world. Why don't you restrict it to shotguns, of course, but
sure.
Tell us about some of the newer things we should learn about from Browning.
Sure. So I guess Browning has 2 different times a year that we really introduce product. We have what we would consider to be our workbook or our catalog product, our inline product. We usually introduce to the public right around January 1st, and then we have what's called SHOT Show specials, which are typically limited time offerings. So you don't have they won't be in our product line necessarily all year. So dealers have a limited time to be able to place orders for those, and then we deliver them throughout the year. So when it comes to new stuff, I'll admit that over the last few years, gun sales have been so strong, we haven't introduced a whole lot of new stuff, intentionally, because we've had such a hard time delivering and keeping up with demand that you introduce something new, well, I mean, you're just taking an order that it's kind of difficult to fulfill, right? So
yeah.
But as things are starting to get back to normal, we're looking at introducing some things. I can't really give you any details of what they might be, but we've got some, unfortunately, right? But we have some product that I think will be very interesting to your listeners. So, I mean, if everybody wants to kind of keep an eye out over the next year or so, hopefully you'll see something you like. But one thing I will say though is that 16 gauge offerings have been really strong the last few years. 28 gauge hasn't been too bad, but we've really spent a lot of time with our 16 gauge offerings and have been very successful with them, which is perfect for the type of hunting that you and your listeners do. I mean, nice light guns that I mean, other than the expensive ammunition, 16 gauge is a pretty nice gun to shoot. But if you're into, I know your listeners probably don't just upland hunt. They probably go out and they shoot skeet and trap and sporting clays, everything, right? We've done really well with some of our more entry level sporting clays and trap firearms. We're really big into more of the youth oriented programs, Trap Shooting's AIM program, for example. So we've got a lot of stuff out there that really caters to shotgunners. We always, I mean, even my boss, honestly, and we sell a lot of rifles, but he considers Browning to be a shotgun company. And honestly, I think he's right. It's kind of our bread and butter, really.
And you did make your bones with the superposed back in the day, and and beyond that, who knows? But even the original Sweet 16 was legendary, and then you guys saw fit, I think, to basically resurrect it. If I'm anywhere near correct. What was the motivation behind bringing it back?
Well, I think and this is before my time. There was another product manager that handled the introduction of that A5 Sweet 16, who's since retired. But the A5 was such an iconic, classic Browning firearm. And when it was when the original version was discontinued in the 90s, they felt like there needed to be a new generation of A5. Mm-hmm. Such an I don't know, just a very I don't know, just an iconic product, right? So the 16 gauge in particular, I thought, in my opinion, was a very bold move. At the time, 16 wasn't necessarily all that hot, but they felt like it was a part of the market that was not wasn't being sought after by our competitors, and still really hasn't been. We're really the only gun out there, semi-automatic 16 gauge shotgun, and needed a nice lightweight upland hunting gun is essentially what that gun is. Now, we have since then come out with some waterfowl versions, and there's been a better variety of 16 gauge ammo recently, including some waterfowl loads. Not necessarily from some of the big competitors, but even companies like Boss, for example, that sell direct to consumer, a copper-plated bismuth shot. I haven't shot any of it, but everyone that I've talked to that has used it said it knocks birds down very well.
Oh yeah, I've heard the same. Yeah.
So now that wasn't necessarily what we were anticipating. We were anticipating that shot shell technology would improve or variety would improve, but a nice lightweight upland gun that hit pretty hard and was unique. And that's really what we were going for, and it's been quite successful. I mean, we had for a number of years, we had just two different two different SKUs, I should say. Our base hunter model, gloss blued metalwork, gloss finished, just kind of a lower grade Turkish walnut buttstock and forearm, and that sold really well. And since then we've come out with a bunch of different variations, from waterfowl models, like I just mentioned, to what we call our ultimate model, which has a game scene engraving and grade 3 Turkish walnut. It's a very pretty gun. That has sold really well for us too. So I mean, we've kind of expanded our offerings, and it's really paid dividends. We've been very happy.
You've got all sorts of other things, and you alluded to some of them, whether it's apparel or accessories or anything else. But one of the things that struck me in talking with my friends at Mid-Valley Clays is you're offering ammunition. Yeah,
and that's through our a partner company, Olin. So we do offer ammunition with the Browning name on it, which is an awesome thing. I mean, it's good quality ammunition, that's been a pretty good thing for us, really, getting the Browning name out there too.
Yeah, and you talk about Olin, and which leads to I don't know if it's in your bailiwick or not, but you got a more than a passing connection to the Winchester Firearms organization now.
That's true. Yeah. So Winchester. Winchester's actually under the same roof.
Yeah.
No, I don't handle any of the Winchester firearms, shotguns or anything. We have another product manager that works with all the Winchester stuff. But yeah, you're right though. So Winchester and Browning are essentially one and the same.
Yeah.
And the relationship with Olin there is very strong, obviously, because they have the Winchester ammunition line. So we work very closely with them. We're not, sister companies, we're more like cousin companies, I guess you could say. But related, but not very closely related, right?
Right.
So, but we work with them regularly. Our Winchester product managers, on the phone with those guys all the time, working with them. Our PR team works with them constantly. So very tight, very close relationship with Olin.
Let's talk about bird hunters in particular, and the models that you have that seem to be resonating with those folks. I know you've got some relatively new things out there. I think Maxis is one of them, but even in the I remember, it's been a while, but I remember when some of the new break open guns were introduced. But what is really working for upland hunters these days from you guys?
So we have a number of different products, I guess, that we cater towards upland hunting. The best that we offer right now, I guess, would be our A5 Sweet 16. Mm-hmm. In my opinion, anyway, it's probably one of my favorite guns in our entire line. Mm-hmm. On the, like you said, the break open guns. So we've got our over under product, our Citori, and then the 725, which is essentially an upgraded version of the Citori with a lower profile receiver. We offer some sub-gauge guns, 20 gauge, 28 for 10 bore. We also, from time to time, offer some 16 gauge offerings, capacity dependent a lot of times. But we also do an aluminum receiver, which reduces the weight of the gun considerably. So It makes it a lot easier to carry around all day long. Because as you know, there's a lot of days where you're carrying the gun around a lot and shooting a little, right? So
those are my days. Yeah,
most of them, right?
Yeah.
So that makes it a nice product to offer to someone that has to hike up a mountain to try and kill some chukar, right? But those products are probably our best suited for upland hunting. When you get into, say, the 12 gauge Maxis, for example, the gun's a bit bigger, a little bit heavier, and it doesn't seem to be as appealing to the upland hunter. So really our A5 is where guys gravitate when they're an upland hunter, that or an over-under, 725 or a Citori.
How about the whole, I'll call it the pandemic-related bull market for firearms? Are we seeing two things, a slowdown in demand, and are we seeing the supply chain finally catch up? Is it, what's happening in the industry these days?
Sure. Supply chain was never the biggest problem for us, luckily.
Yeah.
We did, other than I will say that we did see some outrageous increases in freight charges.
Yeah.
But other than that, we didn't get hit too hard with some of the supply chain issues that these horror stories you hear from some businesses, especially folks that work with electronic components, for example. But the market was so strong. Our back order situation was out of control. Unbelievable, really. And it's tapered off, but still really strong. We've been kind of surprised. Everybody I talked to, not just from Browning, but from other businesses in the industry. Everybody has been waiting for things to kind of crash or have some sort of a hangover from this this high we were at, but hasn't really seemed to be the case. It's tapered off more slowly this time, which is nice. It's good for us.
Yeah.
And we're finally starting to get caught up in some categories and be able to deliver more effectively, because essentially what was happening was people place an order and then have to wait 6-9 months to get the gun they placed an order for, because there was so many orders, you just can't possibly fill them all.
And that's the good news, that it's not that way anymore. We will be back to talk more about maybe more hunting-related stuff and some other gun-related practical things here on the Upland Nation podcast. I'm Scott Linden. That's Tim Frampton. He's the shotgun manager at Browning. Lots more answers right from the source coming up, as well as our road trip. We're going all over the country this week on the road trip, so stick around for all of that. In the meanwhile, a couple commercial messages. First, however you're upgrading your gun, you might want to consider TrulockChokes.com. 15% of all Pinhoti turkey chokes through April, so you better get on that. It's coming right up. Yeah, I know. Right past income tax time. TrulockChokes.com, 15% off. Take a look at all their chokes, including those turkey chokes if you are so inclined, and I know 1/4 of you are. And that's all through April. And then Joy Dog Food, new sponsor around here. You want to learn more about them, joydogfood.com. American ingredients, made in America, family-owned company, 75 years in the hound world, but now they're reaching out to the bird dog community. It's available at feed stores nationwide. They've got a couple high-performance formulations that you might want to take a look at. You'll learn all that at joydogfood.com. Welcome back to the Upland Nation podcast. Tim Frampton with Browning. Tim, did you doze off during the commercials?
No, I'm still awake.
I'm glad to hear that. We talk a lot about the technical stuff and the gadgets and the gewgaws, but we're all hunters here, and quite often I know I blame my bad shooting on my gun. It's not always true, but maybe once in a while it is. If you were out in the field with somebody like me, or we were shopping for a new shotgun specifically for upland hunting, what are the things you might want to share with me in the way of knowledge or experience?
Sure. I guess one of the big things is make sure that the gun fits you properly, and there's no way to really do that without going and picking up the gun and shouldering it. Length of pole is a big thing. One thing to consider with an upland gun is that you generally want a little bit shorter length of pole than you would for something that was designed for target shooting.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of that, not necessarily all of it, but a lot of it's due to the clothing you're wearing.
Yeah.
You're out in the cold chasing after birds. A lot of times you've got a little bit heavier clothing on as opposed to a nice spring or summer day when you're shooting sporting clays, when you just have a t-shirt. So you can afford to have a little bit longer stock to get the proper fit on a sporting clays gun, or a trap gun, for example. Whereas with a gun that's designed for hunting game, we typically err on the side of having a slightly shorter length of pole. Now,
just for the record, what
Sure.
do you think we should start with? Typically a gun will come with what, 14 1/4 inch length of pull?
Yeah, typically, yeah.
And that is,
And then
do we want to go shorter than that?
it depends. If you're shorter in stature, then you might want to.
Okay.
So for someone that was, in a gun, typically, we have to build a gun to sort of an average person.
Yeah.
We're looking at someone that's about, 5'9", 5'10", 175, 180 pounds. What gun would fit that person? So,
Got it.
if you're 6'5", that gun might seem pretty small for you. You may want to go with something a little bit longer.
Mm-hmm.
However, if you're someone that's 5'6", 140 pounds, you may that gun might be a little bit too big for you. You might need to either get a different recoil pad on it that's small, that's a little bit
thinner,
not quite as thick, I should say. Yeah, thinner. And then, of course, that makes the gun kick a little harder, but it fit better. So, it's tough to say. Not every gun fits everybody, and that's why I stress going in and actually picking the gun up,
Sure.
shouldering it, and seeing if it fits you properly. And it's really shouldering a gun and mounting the gun. Gun mount is a skill. You have to develop it. So practice is something that I recommend for people. I spend quite a bit of time actually practicing my gun mount, just because it's so easy to mess it up. And in the moment, a bird flushes in front of you. You don't have any time to really correct. So you want to make sure that your gun mounts right where you want it. So you're looking right down the rib. If you have, a mid bead and a front bead, making sure that those are nice and lined up, and you're looking straight down the rib. So you're not looking on top of the rib, or you're not looking at the back of the receiver. You want to make sure that you actually are looking in the right spot. And that just comes from spending a lot of time mounting your gun.
And, I would think in front of the mirror is a good place to do that, because you could actually see what you're supposed to see.
Yeah. No, that's not a bad technique. A lot of guys will, they'll pick a spot like a corner in their, in the room that they're in, and just mount to that one point of aim. And then even, check their swing, kind of practice swinging across the line of the ceiling. And there's a lot of different techniques. You can look online on YouTube, for example, and there'll be some sporting clays instructors that'll have different ideas on how you can perfect your gun mount, perfect some of your swing, and some of the other shotgunning techniques. But I guess back to gun fit. Cast is a big thing also. Some guns, like for me, example, I'm a left-handed shooter, and majority of guns are built for right-handed shooters. So if I pick up a gun that has cast designed for a right-handed shooter, I'll be looking down the side of the rib, and it doesn't help. And there's not a lot I can do. I can maybe kind of force it sometimes to get my face in the right position, but it's really uncomfortable. However, if a gun's more neutral or designed for a left-handed shooter, it'll fit me a lot better. We at Browning have always taken a position of having a gun fairly neutral as far as cast is concerned. That way, it's easier for people, or, just anybody off the street to pick that gun up and to mount it properly. May not, if someone needs an excessive amount of cast, that may not be the right gun for them. But in general, for the average person, that gun's going to fit better and fit more people than a gun that has a lot of cast. So,
and just so that everybody who's new to our world understands, cast is basically a curve in the gun stock. Can you describe it any better than that?
No, that's a perfect way to describe it.
So cast off would be what we want. If we're righties, we want our gun stock, if the gun is shouldered for us, we want it kind of bending a little to the right. And cast on would be hooked the other way towards us, which is what you want.
What I want, yeah.
Yeah, as a lefty. Is there anything, I was at the SHOT Show and I watched 200 people mount a couple guns. No, this is at Pheasant Fest. Anyway, they'd come in and they'd look at that gun, and then they'd take it off the rack and they'd put it to their shoulder as if they were trying to figure out whether it fit them or not. Mm-hmm. And is there anything else we can do right there in the gun store or right there anywhere that will assure us that we're getting a little bit closer to having a gun that fits us?
That's really about all you can do.
Yeah.
You see guys do stuff like try to measure length of pull by putting the recoil pad in the pocket of their elbow and seeing if their finger touches the trigger. And that's really not the right way to do it. It's kind of something that some of the people have tried to say was the right way to do it over the years, but it's really not. The best way to do it is really just to shoulder the gun, but I think what's important is to understand gun mount and be comfortable mounting a gun, so you can tell if it actually fits you. So if you have no idea what a good gun mount is, sitting there and trying to mount it, you'll probably be inconsistent with your gun mount, which isn't going to help you very much. And then not really knowing exactly what a proper gun mount is, I just don't know that you can really make the right decision. So I stress that if you're a wing shooter, spend some time mounting your gun and making sure that you're really consistent every time. When you put that thing up to your shoulder, it touches your face, touches your shoulder, and you're looking right down the rib.
With the correct eye.
with the correct eye.
Just for the record.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, it's funny. The guy who fixes my computers, he's an incredible guitar player, and he leaves a guitar on a stand right next to all the computers he's working on, so he can just pick it up and play it for 3 minutes whenever he feels like it. And I'm lucky enough to be able to do the same thing with a shotgun here, because nobody's going to freak out when they walk in. Oh my! But you know, having it handy in a safe place where you can actually do that 10 times a day correctly 10 times a day. That's the kind of stuff that, you know, pro athletes do it all the time.
Yeah.
You want to win the Masters, you go to the driving range a lot. We just think we are better shooters than everybody else, don't we, Tim?
Yeah, I would say that's probably right. Yeah.
Okay. That's Tim Frampton. He's the shotgun manager for Browning. I'm Scott Linden. You're listening to the Upland Nation podcast. Tim, if you had to pick an upland bird hunt without having to kill me afterwards by telling me exactly where it is, where would you go and what would you be chasing?
It's a good question. You know, I grew up in California, so I guess I can say I'm a little partial to hunting California valley quail.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, for a number of reasons. They're fun. They're usually in big coveys. They're everywhere out there, and the limit's 10 birds, so you can get a lot of shooting in if it's a good day, as opposed to some of these other upland hunts where you can only kill, you know, a couple birds. You get a lot more action.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I'm not going to argue with that one. They also behave well for a dog.
Yeah.
Well, which, of course, leads to the next question. Off mic, you'll have to tell me, because I'm working on it right now. I've got a California trip planned for this fall, and
awesome.
And it's out to that country where you used to work.
Oh yeah. Okay.
So we'll debrief on that. How about other mistakes we make, whether it's in buying a shotgun or in shooting a shotgun? What do you see out there? And you must see it all. I mean, you must be slapping your face every day over somebody's dumb somethings.
You know, I guess other than buying a gun that doesn't fit you properly, I think there's, well, I don't see people making a lot of mistakes, honestly. That's the number one thing. You know, it's not like a rifle necessarily where you can buy too much gun. It makes you flinch. You know, if somebody's, I mean, granted, you can buy a lightweight fixed breech 3.5-inch shotgun and shoot a bunch of 3.5-inch shells and probably develop a pretty good flinch. Those, I mean, they kick so hard. But I suppose that could be one thing is people buying this sort of new style, outrageously energetic ammunition, thinking that somehow it's going to compensate for some of their poor shooting skills. You know, you don't have to get your leads correct or what have you, because the shot column's going 1,700 feet per second or whatever. You know, I would definitely stress getting a lot of practice in as opposed to you know, trying to compensate with different fancy ammunition, let's say. But as far as gun purchases go, I mean, you really can't go wrong with, you know, a 12 gauge shotgun, for example, is an all around, all purpose gun. If you're going to hunt waterfowl, upland game, turkeys, whatever. You know, that's if you wanted one gun to do everything. You know, I would, you know, you're probably like me. I've got a safe full of guns, so, you know, I always have to have one for one really very specific niche thing, right? So I'm always trying to justify another purchase based on, well, I don't have an aluminum receiver over under that I can, with a straight English style stock, so I better get one of those,
Yeah,
So,
I know the feeling. Yeah, very much.
if you're an upland hunter, 20 gauge will do anything. I've killed plenty of birds with a 28 gauge. It's all about practice shooting, and make sure the gun fits you.
Practical advice from a guy who's seen it all. That's Tim Frampton. He's a shotgun manager at Browning. I'm Scott Linden. This is the Upland Nation podcast. Tim, learned a lot from you. Appreciate that. We'll watch out for some of those new product announcements coming down the road. If they want to learn more, what's the website address for them to shop guns?
So it's a pretty easy one. It's browning.com. Go out there. We have all of our products on there. Not just guns, but you can also take a look at all of our accessories too, clothing. We've got a lot of different products to offer.
And some great history on that site as well. So if you really want to find out how this all worked and why Browning is such a legend in their field, lots of great trivia and interesting stuff about their heritage. It's all there at browning.com. Tim, enjoyed our talk. Appreciate your taking the time out of a busy day at a busy time of year to talk with us. Thanks again, and we'll talk to you again down the road right here on the Upland Nation podcast.
Yes, sir. Thanks, Scott. Appreciate you having me on.
You bet. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Yeah, we still got more here. I'm going to take you on a little road trip, and it's going to cover a lot of country. You'll see what I mean in just a couple moments. First off, let me remind you we're brought to you in part by Midway, USA.com. I'm reminded almost every day that they do carry just about everything for shooting, hunting, and the outdoors. Yeah. And if you're even an amateur gunsmith, it's certainly worth a look. There's all sorts of stuff out there, whether you're a dog trainer, bird hunter, or you just want to tinker a little bit, maybe with a new butt pad based on Tim's advice, for example. Learn more about all of their products, and most of them will ship for free at midwayusa.com. And our friends at Mid-Valley Clays and Shooting School are standing by to help you become a better shooter, from fitting your gun to showing you the move, mount, shoot method, or whatever else fits perfectly depending on what you play. Skeet, sporting, 5-stand, coming soon, another game that I can't wait to tell you about, or just bird hunters. If you're headed for Western Oregon, going through that area, take a look at midvalleyclays.com, schedule a lesson or schedule a time to come out and shoot for fun at midvalleyclays.com. I've been a lucky enough guy. I was reminded of this when I was still working on a story for Gundog Magazine about some of the less common public access opportunities we have available to us, mainly because, in large part, the federal government administers lands of various sorts for various reasons through various agencies, some of which are fairly low profile. So I'm going from one side of the Missouri River in South Dakota to the other side of the Missouri River. There's a big dam, and you can drive over the dam, and so I'm about to do that, and Flick tells me, no, we got to make a pit stop. So I pull over. There's a little park right there, right next to the dam, actually. We get out, and we're walking around. I'm looking at this country out here. I'm thinking, this is incredible. It is textbook sharptail country. Rolling hills, a few draws with some buffalo berries or whatever they are down at the bottom, lots of tall grass. Tall being knee-high, roughly, maybe a little higher. And sure enough, he locks up at the bottom of one of these ravines, and up comes a bunch of birds out of that patch of whatever berry it was. I'm thinking, wow, I'm going to have to come back here. I turn around, I look at the dam, and then I look at the signs. It's Bureau of Reclamation. Yeah, there is such a thing, and they're reclaiming water, I think, is how that all started. But they and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers manage, some would say mismanage, a lot of federal ground that is managed on our behalf. We own it. Yeah, the taxpayers, the citizens own it. They manage it on our behalf. Much of it is available for outdoors recreation, including hunting. You got to be a little careful, number one, to find it, because, like I said, they are kind of low-profile agencies. But quite often, nobody else bothers with these little slices that are along a waterway, or they're, by a dam or whatever. A lot of dikes, the Corps of Engineers does a lot of water management all over the place, not just near a big river or a lake. But all that stuff is available to you if you just know how to read a map and ask the right questions. You want to be careful about it because, for example, they don't like you getting too close to some of those dams. And it's pretty obvious from the barbed wire and the electric fences. But other than that, check out the Bureau of Reclamation and the Corps of Engineers. That's real estate that most people won't bother with. And I would love to thank Tim Frampton of Browning for his knowledge, experience, and insights. Appreciate that, Tim. Thank you to all the folks who comment at the social platforms. Some great stories about some of the cool things they found out there. If you left a rating or a review, appreciate that. We are made possible by the folks who bring you this broadcast: Sage and Breaker Gun Care Products, Pointer Shotguns, Mid-Valley Clays and Shooting School, TrulockChokes, Joy Dog Food, and FindBirdHuntingSpots.com. I hope you learned as much as I did from Tim. Thanks for listening. I'm Scott Linden. See you downrange.